This show is so dumb. This episode gives us two new characters who both compete with each other on an Olympic level to see who can be the most insufferable schmuck of the anime. Kirito has become plot armor incarnate. They've conveniently made him so powerful they don't even need to animate fight scenes any further. Episode 3 left off on a real down note. A bunch of Kirito's friends died and he blamed himself for all of it. Even though it wasn't really his fault, it was Sachi's fault for wanting to get new furniture.
Oh, then we can buy furniture.
Maybe Keita had a good reason for wanting to bump her off. I thought maybe in this episode we would see a darker, even more brooding Kirito emerge. Watching all your friends die and failing to save them would really do that to a guy. But instead we're gonna watch a different anime. In this anime, Kirito is nicer, more upbeat, and far more helpful than he's ever been before. Turns out watching his friends die was one of the best things to ever happen to him. Life is looking up for Kirito. He's level 78 now and he even joined the assault team.
He's the beater who plays solo on the front lines. He's with the assault team!
I wish life was looking up for me. I still gotta wait to buy my Cocoa Pebbles when they're buy one get one free. So it's kinda like the last two episodes didn't even need to happen at all. We could have gone from episode 1 to episode 4 and it wouldn't have felt like we even missed anything. It's February 23rd at the start of this episode. So about 2 months since the last one. Two obnoxious broads are arguing with each other over healing crystals, while three oafish mouth breathers watch quietly. One of the girls is Silica. The next new character this show is just going to forget about next episode. She's a cute, ambiguously aged girl with that shrill, high-pitched anime girl voice that I just love so much.
You don't need to use any crystals.
Also, I don't get why this dragon has healing powers. Most dragons I know do stuff like this.
Yeah!
The other one I didn't get the name of, but she's a real cocky broad and she's not sharing her crystals with nobody.
Your pet lizard has healing powers, you know.
Cocky broad does have a point. If Silica can heal herself with her pet, why does she need healing crystals? Silica claims Cocky broad doesn't need any healing crystals, because she doesn't even fight on the front line. Am I to understand that Silica, with her healing dragon and her wayfish figure, somehow does fight on the front line? Because in the next scene we're going to see her get her ass handed to her. Cocky broad suggests that Silica is really popular, and so she can just get help from any thirsty boys. And Silica knows it too because she says,
I know there's a ton of other parties out there who'd love to have me on their side.
Then she storms off into the woods alone. I'm not sure if this show meant it this way, but so far Silica seems irrational and borderline unhinged. Sure, Cocky broad is being cunty about things, but at least demand the three mouth breathers go with you if you don't want to group with her anymore. Don't just go alone. If Silica is indeed so popular, and it's true that everybody tries to protect her as Cocky broad suggests, then why leave them behind? They even called out after her.
Wait! Don't go! Silica!
Take a stand and say it's her or me. Also, if it's true that everybody tries to take care of Silica in groups, then I seriously doubt she's on the front line, which would mean she doesn't deserve any healing crystals any more than Cocky broad does. Instead, this idiot is now all by herself in the forest where she gets assaulted by giant gorillas. Her annoying pet dragon takes a hit for her and immediately dies. Seeing this was a relief for me because that fucking dragon sounded like one of those screaming goats that your parents keep sending you YouTube videos of. Silica is so distraught over the loss of her fake virtual pet that she doesn't bother getting up and running from her impending death. Conveniently, she is rescued in time by Kirito. Kirito doesn't even break a sweat. He just effortlessly cuts through all of the monsters. So is this what this show is going to be like from now on? I guess you can get around having to draw and animate complicated fight scenes when the main character can just vaporize anything they touch. Kirito asks,
You're one of those beast tamers, aren't you?
Dude, there's no job system in this game!
Kinda sounds like this game has a job system after all. Kirito offers to accompany Silica to a plot-convenient location where a plot-convenient pet revival item happens to grow. But first he's gonna f with her a little. First he says that he would offer to go get it and she could pay him for the trip. but she has to be present or else the flower they're looking for won't grow. Silica vows to level up so she's strong enough to reach that floor, and then Kirito brings up the arbitrary rule that she only has 3 days to revive her pet. Then he sits there for a moment to relish this poor girl mourning her pet all over again after having her fleeting moment of hope crushed.
It's all my fault. I'm so sorry, Pina.
Then he gives her some equipment, and then he finally offers to fucking tag along. All he had to say was, "I'll take you there, we have 3 days to revive your stupid dragon, let's go." Then Kirito reveals that the reason he's offering to help Silica is because she reminds him of his sister, which surprised me because up until this point nobody talked about their life outside of the game, since the first episode when Klein wanted to get his pizza on.
Besides, the game can wait until I get my pizza on.
So next, Kirito and Silica are walking through a town when they are ambushed by 2 Oompa Loompas who want Silica to join them.
You want to team up with us? We'll take you wherever you want to go.
That sounds a little desperate. Silica declines, telling Tweedledee and Tweedledum that she's partying with Kirito. Then she tells Kirito that they don't take her seriously and just want to use her as their mascot.
They don't take me seriously. They want me to be their mascot.
And I have no idea what that even means. Then they just happen to run into Cocky Broad, who throws some more shade. She mocks Silica for losing her dragon and casts doubt that Silica will be able to get to the revival flower at her level. Kirito says it's not that difficult to level, and Cocky Broad says,
No, it's not difficult, but you don't look that strong.
okay, what does that even mean? How does one look strong in a video game that bases its strength on your level? And why would her strength even matter if leveling up is how you get stronger in the first place? If you're gonna arbitrarily put arrogant jerk-offs in your anime who are just there to be a dick to people, at least make their snark make sense. So Silica and Kirito go out for cheesecake, I guess, and another awkward conversation takes place. Silica asks Kirito why Cocky Broad is so mean. Kirito tells her that some players like to roleplay the bad guy, and then he starts talking about how this game has players who actually murder other players. Wait, slow down. She was just asking why the bitch was so mean to her. Nobody's killing anybody yet. So Silica suddenly shouts,
Well, I think you're good, so... I mean, you saved me after all.
and then Kirito weirdly says,
Looks like you cheered me up instead.
Instead? Instead of what? Since when was Kirito trying to cheer Silica up? If anything, he was scaring the shit out of her. Also, nobody was insinuating Kirito was a bad guy. It even showed us the green good guy symbol over his head when he was explaining how to tell the difference between good guys and bad guys. So I'm not even sure why Silica would even say this. Then for some reason we're treated to Silica laying in bed in her underwear, which I think is supposed to be fan service for the Coomers watching the cartoon. Kirito knocks on her door. She goes to open the door and then freezes, realizing she's still in her underwear. Then it cuts to her in her clothes again, thinking,
That was so close.
while Kirito sets up a table. I liked how it transitioned directly from her in her underwear to her in her clothes again. It was like the animators didn't feel like animating her grabbing her nightgown and throwing it on. Must have been too much work. If you're going to have 2 back-to-back scenes with the exact same 2 characters talking to each other, you might as well just have 1 scene. Instead, they broke the conversation into 2 scenes so they could have an excuse to show Silica in her underwear. And considering how young she looks, that's pretty fucking weird. Kirito shows Silica a map of the route they're going to get to the Hill of Memories. But then he thinks they're being eavesdropped on, and I'm just gonna assume it's Cocky Broad. They had her in 2 scenes already and still forgot to give us her name. Then they shoehorned in some dialogue where Kirito tells Silica about player killers. This is clearly our antagonist for this episode. Then that scene just fucks right off and suddenly they're on floor 47 already.
The whole floor is covered in flowers. That's why they call it the flower garden.
This dialogue kills me. Kirito gives Silica a teleport crystal and tells her to warp out of there if she tells her to. She never ever has to use the crystal because Kirito is so overpowered he just dominates everything, so I'm not even sure why they showed us this. At one point when they're in over their heads, Silica even tries to escape, but Kirito actually tells her not to.
There's too many of them. We should get out of here.
No, it's okay. You'll be safe if you stay here. Keep the crystal handy till I say so.
So again, I'm not even sure why they showed him giving her the crystal in the first place. So they're walking down a path towards the Hill of Memories, and look out, here come the tentacles. So a tentacle monster grabs Silica by both of her legs and holds her upside down, and it zooms in on her exposed thighs as she grabs her skirt just in time to cover herself before anything else is revealed. Because this isn't that kind of a cartoon. The artists just want to remind us that they wished it was that kind of cartoon. So as he's watching this glorious sight take place, suave gentleman Kirito says,
Calm down! That thing's not that strong!
"Go help her, asshole." It was already established that Silica is not a high enough level for that floor. Kirito's coming with her to help keep her alive. And yet the first monster to come along and grab her, and he just stands there and scoffs at her. Silica is scared she's gonna die, but she's also worried that Kirito might see whatever exciting underwear she's wearing. And Kirito just continues standing there, leering at her like a scumbag. Didn't he say she reminds him of his sister? Silica manages to kill the monster in one hit, even though she's supposedly underleveled for that place, and then immediately asks Kirito if he saw up her dress. Next we get a long voiceover of Kirito talking about his sister, while a completely unrelated montage of the both of them fighting monsters takes place. They animate the first sequence in the montage, but then they realize they ran out of budget, so everything after that is just a freeze frame. Kirito says that his sister isn't really his sister, but his cousin, and already this backstory is getting complicated. Kirito says his sister cousin doesn't know they're cousins, but he knows, and
I guess that's the reason I avoided her.
You avoided her because you knew she was your cousin? What do you got against cousins, buddy? He tells Silica how when he was 8 he stopped going to kendo lessons, so his grandfather beat the hell out of him for that. Since then, Kirito's sister cousin promised the grandfather she'd train twice as hard so her brother cousin can get by being a lazy pussy. Then Kirito says maybe he's helping Silica because he feels like he's paying his sister back. And I'm sorry, but that's not gonna fly. You don't get closure over your debt to your sister by helping somebody else get their Pokemon working again. So Silica cheers Kirito up about his sister, and then the tender moment is ruined when the animators get horny again. Another sex monster grabs Silica with its tongue-like tentacles, and as it zooms out we see the monster looks like Cthulhu's accursed penis. But before we can put two and two together, Kirito kills the giant penis with one strike. Silica lands on the ground and covers her private parts again like Donald Duck does whenever he loses his shirt. And this kind of awkward shit is why I make sure nobody is around while I'm watching anime. So Silica finds the flower she was looking for, and then suddenly Cocky Broad comes out from behind a tree. It's revealed that red-headed cleavage lady is named Rosalia, and she's the leader of the guild Titan's Hand. So Rosalia says,
If you saw through my hiding skill so easy, your detection skill must be really high, swordsman.
You're standing behind a tree, lady. Anybody with peripheral vision could have seen you. So what Rosalia does is she gets close to players and sizes them up, and then later has her guild ambush them. The implication here that all of these players in the guild are voluntarily committing murder over virtual items. And we're hearing about this now, about a year into the game. Rosalia plays up the anime villain thing a little too much for me to take her seriously. She licks her lips while talking about other players earning that beautiful money.
And watching them earn all that beautiful money.
So is she gonna eat the money that she robs from these players? I don't understand. I just don't understand what the point is of murdering people over fake money. It's not going to get you any closer to finishing the game and freeing yourself. Anyway, so Rosalia demands Silica hand over the flower because she likes rare items or something. Then Kirito reveals that he's been actually looking for Rosalia all along. Get ready because the writers are giving us another ass pull. So Kirito recollects how 10 days ago, Rosalia's guild attacked another guild and killed everybody but the leader. He ran back to town and begged everybody he found to avenge his friends. But he didn't want anybody killed, he just wanted them put in prison. So apparently there is an in-game prison that you can put players in. This all would have been a great scene to show us at the beginning of the episode, instead of Silica busting Rosalia's balls over healing crystals. Rosalia says that there's no proof that anybody killed dies in real life, which is completely asinine. I would think when you see players not coming back from dying, that's a pretty good idea that they're gone for good. Plus, she's not at all concerned about how she still can't log out of the game. Also, I call bullshit on Kirito looking for Rosalia this entire time. He just happened to find Silica in the woods. There was no way he could have known Rosalia was targeting Silica at that time, nor did he have any clue that they would have run into Rosalia in town later that evening. So Rosalia's henchmen get ready to attack Kirito when they suddenly realize that he's the Black Swordsman. They say that
He's the beater who plays solo on the front lines. He's with the assault team.
Whatever that means, you peasant.
how many conflicting ideas are we gonna have this guy spout off all in one breath? Is Kirito on a team or is he a solo player? See, this is the problem with simply telling the audience about a character instead of showing them. You can make up any shit you want, and as long as you blurt it out fast enough, the audience might not think fast enough to pick up on it. So all these guys are cutting and stabbing Kirito, but nothing happens to him. Then he starts spouting off numbers. He gives them a number in seconds and then says that's how much damage they can do to him.
410 seconds, give or take. That's about the total damage the 7 of you can inflict on me.
Whatever that means, you peasant.
So we're measuring damage in time now? How does that even work? Then Kirito tells them his level and his stats, and I'm realizing that a show about characters in a video game really isn't as cool as it sounds when it devolves into the protagonist bragging about his video game numbers. So Kirito suddenly has a crystal that will teleport all the bad players to prison off screen so the animators don't have to animate it. He holds his sword up to Rosalia's throat and tells her he doesn't care if he turns orange for a few days, because he's a solo player. And then that scene f***ed off and we see Kirito talking to Silica in her room. We never get to see how Kirito manages to use a single crystal to teleport 8 different players to prison, but I'm sure the animators had really important prior engagements that day. Kirito apologizes for using Silica as bait, and again I call bullshit on this. For this to be true, Kirito would have been tailing Rosalia the entire time, and then when Silica left the group at the beginning of the episode, Kirito then decided to break away from Rosalia, who he was targeting, to go after Silica. But there was no reason to go after Silica at that point, since Rosalia was already with 3 other dudes who presumably she would have organized an ambush on, thus giving Kirito the opportunity to send the guild to prison. So Kirito went after Silica, waited for her to get beat to the point where her dragon would swoop in to save her, get killed, so Kirito could save the day and then tell Silica about the revival flower. For this convoluted plan to work, Kirito had to trust that Silica would run into Rosalia again and tell her about the flower, making Rosalia want to target Silica so she could steal the flower from her. But then if it's true that she reminded Kirito of his sister, then he wasn't really using her as bait since he actually did want to help her. So capturing Rosalia just would happen to be a happy coincidence. This is why I think they just made this episode up as they wrote it. They tacked on the part about Kirito hunting Rosalia's guild at the very end and didn't bother editing the rest of the script to make this fit. Kirito starts talking about how levels aren't real and there are more important things. Then he offers to hang out with her in real life when they get out of the game. And I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he just friend-zoned her. So Silica revives her dragon and she can't wait to tell her dragon about how she finally got to have her own big brother. And then the episode ends before the animators have to animate that stupid dragon any further. This episode was crazy. I touched upon it earlier already, but Kirito is basically a different character in this episode. It so far seems like they made Kirito into whatever character they need him to be for the current plotline. Silica was irritating. The show for some reason kept emphasizing her crotch and it was really weird. They had not one but 2 different monsters put her in awkward, vaguely sexual situations, and they sandwiched both incidents around Kirito sharing a personal story about him and his sister. I don't get what the tone of this was supposed to be. I hate that so far this show does its world building only when it conveniently supports the current episode. We learn in this episode that players can have familiars, and that the familiars can die, but they can only be revived within 3 days so long as a certain item on a certain floor is obtained, but only if the familiar's owner goes there. Then later in the episode, Kirito tells us about player killing right before we're introduced to a guild that happens to kill other players. And at the very end, we learn that this game has a prison for player killers, right when it's convenient to introduce it into the story. Of course, they didn't draw or animate any of it, but they have to have Kirito bring it up so we don't think that he's murdering a bunch of players. Rosalia didn't make any sense as a character. If you want to make an evil player who wants to kill other players, give them a little better motivation, or if nothing else, just make them go crazy or something. Having her just not take the finality of death seriously in a virtual world that she is also a prisoner in just doesn't seem very believable to me. Anyway, I spent way too much time on this episode, but suffice to say I really did enjoy watching this. I'm actually hoping these characters get discarded this time and we can just start over with something else next episode. Something less dumb, preferably. So if you're still with me through all of this, leave me a comment below and let me know which character you want to see in their underwear next time. You perverts.